For context, then, the audience we're going to be talking about today is companies that are already established. They could be startups, they could be scale-ups, but they probably already have or go to market with a sales-led motion, but want to utilize a product-led growth strategy. Where should they start? You've just touched on a few of the bits there, but where do you think is the first step for them?
Yeah, so I'd always just bring it back to the strategy. So like, okay, what does this look like for your business? And in our program, Product Accelerator, one of the things we focus on at the very beginning is just like, who is this for? Like, who is your ideal user? Think about like, look at all the people who you have as customers right now. Who are those ones that are like the most sticky? They love your products. They refer your products. Whenever you give them one of those NPS scores, are always like 10 out of 10, 9 out of 9. It really just like rate you very highly. You're solving some core needs. So like you find those people, and then the next thing you got to do is like, okay, what does that end user success look like for this particular user? What is that big promise we're going to make to them? And to get crystal clear on that as a team. And because one thing is, it's really simple when you look at it from like a high level strategy perspective, like, okay, this is the promise we make. Of course, we got to deliver into in the product. And that's where it gets very complex. But you really need to get crystal clear as a team of like, what is the promise we're going to make to this user that really is meaningful to them, will help them really see value. And then the next part is like, okay, how do we really solve that problem for them for free? And what's a subsection of that that will really help them see value? So an example, if you're like Slack and one of your promises is like, okay, we want to help teams, not teams, organizations communicate a lot better. The very first kind of beginner milestone might just be, let's help a team do that effectively. Let's help a team communicate very well together for free. And then once you get up to certain limits, then you start having to pay if you want more messages, more files, all that stuff. So really thinking about those subsections and how you can gear people towards seeing that part of the promise is huge. And where I see a lot of companies really make the mistake is they slap on this like free trial and they don't support it with the right resources. They just kind of like empower the VP of sales, let's say, to run with this. And what ends up happening is very quickly, it just goes back into what it used to be, where it's like, okay, instead of a demo request, people are filling this out. We're following up with them the same way. It's, people are still having to manually get onboarded. Not much has changed from that end because they haven't got clear on like, what are we trying to help people do in this free product? Why is it here?
And I guess you can think about it as the product as a whole, but you could also think it as a separate thing that can lead into the product. So I'm thinking about HubSpot's website grader, was it something like that? So you could perhaps use a tool or build a piece of software or something which allows your ideal customer to achieve an element of what they want to do for free, which then leads them into the product. Would you also think about that as a product-led growth strategy?
Yeah, that's definitely a part of it. Like on the marketing side of things too, of like, how do you market and communicate like some of the context around like, where do you need to focus for your website? In that case, it kind of opens up your eyes to some things. You're like, oh my goodness, like I never knew we were like this bad at some particular things. But yeah, where I think when it comes to your product experience, what you'd want to do is like go one step further where it's like, okay, yes, like that's useful knowing this information, but what am I supposed to do with it? And how do I really see, okay, going from a website grade of 50 to now I'm at 70, like that feels like meaningful progress. And how do you help enable that within your product?
Gotcha. And what sort of companies do you feel are achieving this really well then at the moment?
Yeah, there's a ton of them nowadays. You already mentioned like the classic ones we all kind of go back to, which is like the Canvas, the Typeforms, the Slacks of the world. And those ones are definitely doing an amazing job of really like embodying this and really deploying it in their business. But I'm also a big fan of just some of the companies who have gone through our program where it's like nobody knows of them. But they are really just delivering and over-delivering value to their users. And that's actually what I get more excited about is like companies that really get this and they want to really just not just, okay, promise something on their website copy, but they can deliver on it very quickly. And I think those companies are the ones that are going to be winning a lot more in the future for sure.
Perfect. And you've talked about your program, which is a great start as well. What other tools would you recommend somebody be using then?
So the use within the program, or as far as like,
yeah, just I mean, obviously you mentioned that your coaching program was great, but in terms of other tools or anything like that, did people, would you suggest people use other tools like Pendo or anything like that? When we're talking a bit sort of technical here, or
totally. Yeah. So whenever I consider tools, I'm like totally tool agnostic. Doesn't matter too much, but I would try and think about it like a cake in terms of the layers of tooling.
Yeah.
So the very first layer of your cake, I mean, if you're going to make a cake, like I'm all for Oreo cakes. So like maybe this is the ice cream layer at the bottom, but yeah, the very first layer is data. So you need to have the right data, or else you're kind of shooting in the dark around what's going on. So like whether you use something like a mix panel, a heap, or an amplitude, or like something like June.so, like there's a lot of different options nowadays that will just tell you like, okay, here's what's working, here's what's not. You need to get an understanding of that entire user journey from like someone who you don't know to they become a customer, and where do they get stuck in that particular journey. So that's the first layer you must have. The second layer is really the product layer, which is thinking about, okay, within the product experience, how do we better enable people? And so this is where like a product like, the Pendos, the app queues, the user pilots, I mean, there's so many nowadays, which is cool. This is a lot of selection, but also confusing.
Yeah, indeed.
But like, how do you guide people within the product to really see values? How do you walk them through some of those steps, which you might have a hypothesis of like, okay, people need to do these 5 things to see value, but like, okay, let's show them. Let's make it like really easy so that they can actually do that. Where I kind of see a lot of people abusing some of these tools is like, welcome. See this part of our product? See this product and part of our product? Wow, you have no idea about this part of the product. And it's just like this entire tier, and people are like left like, okay, I've accomplished nothing. I have actually less motivation to use this product. So there's a ton of abuse going on there, but that's the second layer. The third one is really the conversational layer, which is thinking about, okay, how do we communicate in a way where we catch people where they are? And I think this is the main differentiation between like, okay, we just use like an active campaign or something like that. We're just like, okay, we have, a time-based email sequence, and everyone starts there with a free trial or even like a freemium model. But how do you get a bit more granular? Like, so which users who have signed up in the last 7 days have actually got the value? So the ones who have, send them the upgrade stuff. The ones who haven't, send them all the information you can to really help them get to the step. If they need to, let's say, copy an embed code or something like that to their website, and they're not that technical of an audience, offer an option in one of those emails to like forward this to their developer or something. Make it easy for them and catch them where they are in that journey. So those are the 3 main layers: the data, product, and conversational layer for tools that like you really do need to have as a product-led business, and that will make an amazing cake.
Awesome. You're making me hungry.